Rumors Are True listeners, if you'd like to add me on Instagram and Facebook, it is at the Rumors Are True cast. If you'd like to like and subscribe, feel free, you know what to do. If not, no matter what, I really appreciate you listening. So, again, if you'd like to add me, you know the drill. If you'd like to subscribe, you know it even better. Thank you guys.
Welcome, it's Jeremy Allen Gould. I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that in fact, the rumors that you have all heard are true. I started this podcast because I freaking love music. I was privileged enough to book amazing artists and bands in the past, and I was lucky enough to stay in touch with many of them to this day. This is a place to hear their stories. Thank you so much for riding along on this journey, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true.
We put ourselves down in a position we take a safe, but the marks of the people that walk on us leave a trace of where we should act and the they should react. You're brought up and beat down and then the left to wax and stacks them on the minds of the ill content. Not every angel said before you even heaven sent. We look into the eyes of the people that follow the sun, but they're trying to follow sheep, but the battle's not won. Justice here, but now you never see. Surrounded by the circle of something that's your destiny. You just feel, but now you never know. Praying to God to let the wind blow. Justice here, but now you don't stop. Praying to God to let the wind blow. You lay your cards down and it's 110%, but then there's 35% of the people out for spent. The time to get to know you as a person, they just stand behind your back, having a trade a person. Playing your damn to be something that you're not. Forked tongue of the wicked rambles off, popping hot. Killing you softly, but you feel the same forever. When was the last time your heart had been severed?
Rocket in the mind. A rocket in the mind.
Thank you for tuning in again to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I have a special episode, a Mike Knott tribute episode with none other than Ted Cookerly of Everyday Life. Awesome conversation with the legend Ted, just his perspective on Mike Knott, his influence on his life, his music, his career. Really, really cool episode I've been looking forward to for quite a while. So it was just awesome to get his perspective again on Mike Knott and just kind of what he meant to him. So I hope you enjoy this Mike Knott tribute episode with Ted Cookerly. Ted Cookerly, thank you so much for coming on my podcast, man. I really, really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just happy that we're going to take this next hour or so to talk about slow salvation. Really excited.
Yes, that would be incredible. I mean,
that is the only reason why I'm here is just to if Cloud put it out, go buy it and buy to a slow salvation. That's the moral of the story.
That record's amazing, for sure.
It's fantastic. I am absolutely blown away by this single. Like, Japan is just super awesome. It is absolutely in rotation. It's good. It's good.
It rocks for sure, dude. Sweet, man. Tell me what's going on in your life currently. I know you and I've been talking for quite a while, but just tell me what's going on in your world.
It's motorcycle season. It's all the chopper shows are going off right now. I've spent the last 2 years working on this really cool bike that I'm super proud of, and got first place at a motorcycle show here not too long ago. I've been invited to another one, and I think after that we'll probably just stop with the bike and just ride it. And, it's skateboard season. So obviously, it's time to go back outside of the parks, indoor parks. After a while, get to be a little stuffy. And outside of that, that's literally it.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm scared to death of motorcycles. I don't know why. I think I'm just ignorant to them and the fact that it is a world I don't know. But I always thought it was cool when I got the Starflyer 59 silver record and they had the Triumph bikes. And I just was like, that is so cool. That'll never be me, but that is so cool. That's a world I don't know. But I think that's really awesome that you're so into that.
I think, anybody who owns a motorcycle is lying if they don't tell you it scares the hell out of them. Like, you should be. Like, it's the whole thing. It's like, men of God fear him. It's respect. So, especially if you built your own motorcycle from the ground up, it's like, dude, man, I hope the duct tape and paper clips hold because I'm getting on the freeway. Please don't kill me now, And I'm just on this bike, and I love it, and I love the aesthetic of like sitting in the garage and just having the right tool for the right job, and just it's such I love the craftsmanship about it, and I'm still just cutting teeth. My buddy Nick is building a 79 shovel right now, and it's like every day it's conversations about like what fits, what doesn't, what works, what doesn't. How many times have we bought the same part 3 times for 3 different bikes, and none of them were the part that we needed? It's been a blast, and it's something that I didn't think was a passion as much as skateboarding could be. Like I am hands down a skateboarder. So the minute fall is in the, the minute spring is in the air, it's time to go outside and go fall down and get. But man, somewhere along the line, motorcycles have kind of surpassed it. And to your point, like Jason Martin makes anything look cool. Like I'm just getting, and more so Ronnie, and I'm not trying to put Ronnie over Jason in any capacity whatsoever, but it's like, first of all, I want to know what kind of deal you have to make to be that incredibly handsome all of your life. They can just stop now.
I know.
And I look, if Jason was sitting there in black and white holding a pudding cup, I'd be like, man, I really need to start eating pudding. Like I mean, obviously I'm showing my true colors when it comes to those guys, because they've been such a huge influence in my life, not just, my musical career, but it's like Jason and Ronnie, just aesthetically, musically, artistically, they exude like just that confidence and that cool vibe. It's
absolutely
like, how do I touch that? How do I put that in my hand and have it for myself? But I still remember that photo, and it's like, it's probably my pants to this day. It's like, damn you, Martin.
I know. But I mean, for a teenage kid, discovering that and then being like, whoa, these guys do that too. It's just like, well, I mean, these guys are the epitome of cool. Like, this is so rad. But, again,
and it's you hope somebody stops it. Like, okay, well, with Ronnie and Jason, they could just stop. And then Jason goes, hold my beer, I've got a son.
Yeah.
And surprise, he's equally as talented. And that's for you. And it's like, oh crap, man, my son's in the military. Like, man, I get it. Thanks for, fighting for my rights and all of that. Couldn't you play guitar?
I'm sure you're proud of him. I'm sure you're beyond.
I'm so proud of him. I mean, dude, I talked him out of playing stand-up bass when he was like 9 or 10 because it costs so much to rent one of those. And I'm like, I get it, dude. You think you're Glenn Miller and the Hellcats, but I can't afford that stand-up bass right now unless we buy it, and you better play the hell out of it. So.
I get it.
Yeah.
Sick, man. Well, you just kind of touched on influences. I was just going to ask you, growing up for you, influences, bands, records, maybe some shows that kind of influenced who you've become and your musical journey and just who you are overall.
That's a really good question. I don't really think about it a lot. I've had to think about it because I know you and I have been talking for a while, and I think the biggest thing for me is maybe not necessarily like a particular band, although I mean everybody can rattle off 9 or 10 bands. It was radio. Like I'm very fortunate, growing up in Los Angeles County, Long Beach. We had access to radio stations that kind of narrated, what your summer was like and what your school experience was like, and you partner that with the John Hughes film, and it's just a nostalgia explosion,
Sure.
When, 1 minute you're listening to K-Rock and a new Cure song is out,
Wow.
or, a Smithereen song or something like that is being played in common rotation, like the Stone Roses, or Blur. All of a sudden you're like, well, radio saved me. And then you immediately flip over to AM radio and KDAY, which is one of the first hip hop committed radio stations that had moved from jazz and blues to hip hop. They're playing Gangstar and Public Enemy and Special K and MC Light and all of these bands. And it's like, you flip back and forth, and then Los Angeles ups the ante, and then they start KNAC, which is all metal. So now it's like, okay, so yes, I'm listening to the Smiths, but I'm also listening to Gangstar, or I'm listening to like Special K or the DOC or NWA on this radio station. And then I flip over, and now I'm listening to Testament. I'm listening to Motley Crue, and it's like you just keep flipping, and it's like every radio at the beach had a different station on that was kind of narrating that. So radio was a huge influence because it just simply was like your soundtrack. In junior high school, I happened to have a really amazing friend named Josh, who would share mixtapes with me that would always have a Run DMC song on it. That like the whole other side would have like Meat is Murder. I think some of the records that stand out were, Meat is Murder. I think the second B-52's record really, really hit with me because it just was a sound that was so unique to me. More so the third record with Whammy, because it was like what was in fashion at that moment. I think Gangstar's No More Mr. Nice Guy, Public Enemy's Takes a Nation of Millions, or Yo Bum Rush the Show. Goodness. I think, if you go to metal, it's like, well, everybody handed you a copy of Ride the Lightning and was like, this is the gospel.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard to argue with that, but Too Fast for Love is also, pretty fantastic too. And, have you heard this Skid Row song or this Faster Pussycat song? Have you heard any of this stuff? And, so all of this just kind of comes flooding in. So it's like, I don't really associate myself specifically to any one particular record, be it the Smiths or Houdini or anything like that. But it's really kind of radio. Like it gave us the soundtrack. And I mean, I think that is kind of an explanation as to why EDL sounded like it did. But there were shows that, I'm putting my friend Josh and I on blast. Ninth grade, you get to go to a show by yourself. Obviously, we went to the Greek Theater and saw Frankie Goes to Hollywood. So let's not sleep on that. I wish I was kidding. I literally wish I was kidding. But like,
I bet that ruled.
One of the first shows, if not the first show, was Frankie Goes to Hollywood. So
incredible.
Boom, put that feather in your cap. I think like shows in general were kind of not accessible to me, just because of the economic situation that I grew up in. I will say I was very fortunate that I had a contemporary social studies teacher in high school at Somerset, where I went, that was also in a band that made political talk very safe, and made contemporary issues within the construct of what our high school was, a very safe conversation to have. More so, one of the guys I went to school with, his name was Paul Kelly. He was in a band. I was in a punk band called Corrupted Ideals. He went by the name of Paul O'Tix, and I remember specifically him telling me, "Yeah, I'm in a band. It's punk rock." And obviously, the dude had Liberty poles and things like that, and had the old English driver's hat and everything like that, and everything about him was just super, super cool.
Yeah.
But he was one of the first people that I was ever in awe of, because he made a record. Like, he made a physical record.
Wow.
And it was like, this is fantastic. Like, this dude I went to high school with, like, bought a record that I bought at Zed's Records. And it's when you like start coming around and you're like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know? And artists like Public Enemy on the liner notes in their records would say, if you really want to, expand your horizons and read this book, read Malcolm X by Alex Haley, read these books, listen to this music, get the tape of Martin Luther King's greatest speeches. You should do this for yourself. And all of that became an influence too. So it's like, you partner that with radio, and you put that together with some really cool narrative voices that are like, this is all tangible. This is all very believable. And it's right here. And you can have this too. And you start walking around with like this kind of amazing sense of empowerment. Like, I can really do something. And I think that's what led to it, because that's when I started writing hip hop, started writing raps that were incredibly immature, invoked the highest level of cringe possible. They're completely embarrassing, and I'm very thankful that those got thrown away very, very early on. But yeah, I think that's it. I think if you ask a lot of people, it's the typical SoCal narrative, like 80s Southern California narrative. It's music got me through it, and radio did it. So yeah.
Well, I know we're briefly going to touch on EDL, but when you were in the band, what kind of music was influencing you at that time? I know you had, obviously kind of had your sound and the way you were going with it, but I know, the Southern California area obviously had a huge impact on you. So, maybe kind of briefly touch on some of the groups and some of the records at that time that kind of influenced you just in general, and I guess in the band in general.
Yeah. Actually, kudos to Carl. Carl always came with like a really broad base of what he thought everyday life should sound like, because at the end of the day, like, that was Carl's baby. He's the one that saw it. I think much sooner than I did. I was personally trying to work on a solo deal through the same avenues with the guys from Dynamic Twins and SFC and XL. Cool. Yeah, I was trying to get in on that whole thing. And so I was working a lot with them, but when we would meet up and play music, Carl had this very finite idea of what it should encompass. And, Carl's idea is that if you went to the radio and you turned the dial, and every five stations you stopped at, whatever that song was, it should represent something you should sound like. And I always thought that was really, really interesting, because he was like, rap, metal, death, industrial, what are we listening to? So it wouldn't be unheard of that we would, just running around Bellflower, running around North Long Beach, and we would listen to, one day it would be Sick of It All, and it'd be Blood, Sweat, No Tears, or Scratch the Surface. The next day it might be, Tool. Busta Rhymes was huge. Like, all of these really eclectic sounds. We were doing sessions at Eric's studio in the back where we were listening to a lot of trance and a lot of ambient music. Like, Death Cube K comes to mind. Just these bands that were just noise, sound. And we incorporated a lot of that in the first record and a little bit into the second record. I think if you had to play the hometown card, Suicidal Tendencies hit heavy. Yeah. Even when it was on K-Rock, it was like, you knew it was something different. You knew that was us. Jane's Addiction came into play really quick, like a lot of the Los Angeles bands, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mother's Milk, all of that. And then you could turn around and go, okay, well, now I'm going to listen to the Shangri-Las. Yeah. I'm definitely going to listen to Glenn Miller, but we're also going to listen to War. We're going to listen to all of these bands, and whatever that sounds like this week, that's what we have to adopt to. And obviously, going down the road, we definitely took on a bit more of a hardcore sound. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that like vulgar display of power on a guitar level and a vocal tone level came into play, and it was like, okay, listen to this. And very much so, I would have to say Prong. It just had a vibe to it that nobody else did. And Tommy was just good at that. Yeah. So it was super cool when we all had an opportunity to work with Buka and Cell Dweller and Clank on the Argyle Park record.
That's so cool.
It was really awesome because like they really made that a really cool experience for us and really kind of ushered us into like cutting our teeth and being a band.
Yeah.
And more so your friends are your influence, Buka, Clank, Cell Dweller. The guys from the Crucified were super, super helpful and like tuning up what the band should be and where we should go. Like Baloo was there 90% of the time.
Awesome.
Mark was around. Jerome and Gyro, I think, were one of the first people that Carl and I told, hey, we're a band. And, the guys from Focused and Unashamed, and they were all around too, like when we started, and we're like, okay, this is the thing, and this is what it sounds like. And people were cool with it, and other people were like, could it be better though? It's like, yeah, it could be better. Yes, it absolutely could be better. Let's figure this out. And I think if I have to really give flowers, it's to Brian Gray. It's like to Brian and Jim Chapin. And yeah, me too. It felt like we needed a little family of people around us that brought their own knives to the gunfight and were willing to die for it. And man, Brian like really came through. And then later on, like the guys from POD, once we were in proximity to one another and we could talk and we could hang out and talk about these similarities and life situations and things like that, like they really became kind of our champions. They
love that.
And us for them, it was you find this little family and these really cool people that you're like, man, I couldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And for a lot of those guys, it was like that. But definitely Brian, definitely Clank, definitely Jeff. Those getting into the band and finally defining the sound was based on the influences that we had as humans and music.
Yeah. Well, I know we're at some point going to do an episode on EDL, but I just kind of want to know a brief synopsis in your mind, just looking back on the band in general. How do you view it? How do you feel about it? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just kind of overall, I definitely think from an outside perspective, I enjoyed you guys. I thought it was cool. You guys in POD were doing something all these other bands weren't doing, and especially in that small Christian rock world, if you will. So for me, it was just, oh, this is cool. And you guys were, pushing boundaries, and you guys were touching on subjects that a lot of people weren't touching on. So to me, I appreciated that and understood that. But I'm just curious how you feel about it, looking back briefly on, just kind of on your time in the band.
I'm glad you said that. I thank you for saying that is what I mean to say. I apologize. I don't, my time in the band was amazing. Like, just for the simple fact that we were given a platform and we took full advantage of the platform. Let me speak for myself. I took full advantage of the platform to be a voice for maybe some people who weren't being heard, and maybe for a voice that kind of unified over something that was not traditional within the Christian parameters, and we drew a lot, and again, we drew a lot of that energy from bands like Scattered Few and the Crucified. And there were people who were speaking a message that we could click with that gave us permission to do it too. And I freely admit that I took advantage of the platform, got out my soapbox, and spoke on things that I think just hadn't been touched on. And so for me, the experience was great because it permitted me that opportunity to just kind of like speak on some things that maybe were a bit taboo, bring to light some things that I don't think I would have been okay with having not talked about it. Being in a band with Eric and Carl was absolutely amazing. Incredible musicians. Eric is just a phenomenal drummer, just phenomenal. Like when you look at like Steve and Lance and Jim and all of these fantastic, amazing drummers, like I'm very proud to say that Eric was in my band because I watched those guys watch him play.
Awesome.
The most brilliant thing about Carl is that everything that ever came out of a song, he could go back and go, that's exactly how I heard it when I wrote it. And so Carl's vision is very much a realized vision, and it's super cool to be around that because I did not come from a musical background. So every opportunity was getting uncomfortable, learning something new, trying to make my contribution the best I can. Whether or not we were an influence to anybody else, I don't know, man. We were polarizing. As I've learned through my remedial searches of the internet, we were polarizing. I'll say that. And you know, when I quit the band, it was an abrupt exit because I was done and tired and wanted to be dad and left it all behind.
Sure.
And so I don't know what our impact was simply because I walked away from music and hunkered down and tried to be the best dad to my kid ever. And so I don't know if there's bands out there to be like, oh, you know, if it wasn't for EDL, if this, if that, I don't know what our impact on the music industry was. I don't know what our impact was on the people who were out there. I honestly, I don't know. In truth be told, I don't really think about it too much because I've been out of the band more than I've been in the band.
Yeah. And
just the fact that I could look at my phone and still text Carl and still text Jim, talk to Jeff Elbel, and talk to these amazing musicians that I was very, very lucky to be in cahoots with. I think that's the big takeaway for me is that I got my friends back, and that's bigger than I feel like that's bigger than whatever our legacy, if there is one, is.
Yeah,
we did stuff differently. I think I'm proud of the fact that we did stuff differently, but I don't know what kind of an impact that leaves with people. I'm just glad somebody listened. You know? I'm very thankful, and I appreciate the energy that people came at us with. You know, whether you appreciated the band or not, at least people were honest with us, and I think you can't ask for much more.
Yeah.
And you know, I want to see well for everybody. So, you know,
that's awesome.
Yay team.
I love that, man. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. I know, you know, as a fan on the outside looking in, you know, I think you guys definitely had a niche in a good way. And again, I think it came back to the fact that you were playing with, you know, these, you know, Focused and Unashamed and, you know, whoever else it may have been, and you were getting that, the credibility, if you will. But on the other side of things, you could stand on your own, which I think was really cool, you know, being able to play on these festivals, you know, with the bands that you played with, POD and all that stuff. I think it's cool. It says it's a testament, you know, to you guys as a band. You know, I don't think they're going to put some crappy band on, you know what I mean? You got to have, you know, the skill.
Oh, watch your language, young man.
Well, a lot
of those bands are like, hey, let's bring on EDL. It's like...
I know there's, I should have chose my words better, but what I'm getting at is I definitely think you definitely had a good amount of respect, I guess, from the viewpoint that I'm looking at. You know, and you guys were, you know, you put, you know, a couple records out, which, you know, there's obviously a fan base out there still. You know, when I posted a teaser for this, people were stoked, man. Like, they were just like, oh my goodness. Like, and so I think, you know, overall, it sounds like you're proud of it, which I'm stoked for you. And and we can talk about that in a future episode, but I'm just was curious about that. And
I think the one thing, like, if it's like, if I'm thinking back and it's like, how do you make a band's legacy like live on past your excitement about being in a band? The answer is $20 bills. If you go to Cornerstone and just hand out $20 bills and tell them, hey, I'm an EDL, big time rapper, rocker guy, you're going to love me. Anyways, 20, 30 years from now, if people are like, did you like EDL? Just remember, I gave you $20 and you're obligated. It is a nonverbal agreement that you will say nice things about me. And
of course,
that will be fine. And then my son will think that I'm the coolest dude in the world, which is, man, that's a lot of work.
I'm sure he thinks that already. I'm sure he does.
I don't think so, but okay. Yeah, I will tell you this real quick. There's an FYE on the west side of Columbus. I think Aaron was maybe seven or eight. And so this is like 9 years after Moment of Clarity came out. And he's digging through the CDs with his mom. And he finds our third record.
Wow.
We're like $2.99. And he bought it with his own money.
Aww.
So not only did he not buy it new so I'd get paid, he bought it used and then proceeded to later, when he remembered it was in his car, that's how long it took before he finally listened to it. So like flash forward 6 years. I don't know. The first 3 or 4 songs are okay, I guess. It's like, dude, you have been listening to My Chemical Romance nonstop and Bad Brains for like the last month and a half. And you have the nerve to come to me and go, tracks 2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like, pay me my royalties, dude. They paid for your lunch. Pay me my royalties.
Exactly. So, Ted, this is a special episode. This is the first one I've done like this, but we're going to talk about the great Mike Knott, Mike Gerard Knott.
Yeah.
I know you
As
knew
you can
him.
tell from the painting behind me. Yeah.
Yes. I can. I was going to mention that earlier. I did notice that.
Yeah.
I know you've worked with him, talked with him, known him over the years. I'm just curious. Just talk to me about Mike Knott and just his influence on you as a person, as an artist, your career. Just I want to know how you feel about him, but his passing lately has just really affected a ton of people, obviously yourself included.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be really cool to get a perspective of yours that not many people might not know or might know, and I think it's cool that you were willing to do it. So yeah, tell me what Mike Knott meant to you.
Damn. I thought I was going to be cooler. First of all, there's a lot of great people out there that have better stories and better experiences than I do. So I'm just, one of many. Before we agreed to do this, I did reach out to Stormy, his daughter, and just kind of ask permission because it's still soon, I just kind of wanted to make sure it was okay with her to kind of go on about her dad for a minute and just kind of, be that fan. And she obviously, just like her dad, is incredibly gracious and was kind and was very to the point, like, do it. So thank you to her for just kind of giving me the opportunity with permission to kind of speak about it. Mike is the kind of guy, and I'm sure other people would say this too. It's like, you got starstruck.
Yeah.
He has this presence in a room where it's like, you just look at it and it's like, oh, that guy knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
And we were very fortunate enough that, Knott was kind of in the frontline ethos because of all the bands that, he was working with, everybody from Terry Taylor and Ojo and Gene and Anna and everybody like that, like he was very much at the offices for Frontline when we were, when we signed to Alarma and realized that, we're doing this record at Studio A and all the cool kids are at Studio B, which was the green room. And we were trying to cut a new path. And for a lot of it, Mike was kind of around. When we were working on the first record, we had been working on the record through 5 record companies until we finally landed at Alarma. And we started in Studio A and we had to get tape for a couple other recordings that we had to finish up. And I went to this place, I think it was in Newport Beach, where they sold 2-inch tape. And Mike was in there buying 2-inch tape for, I don't know if it was Strip Cycle. I don't know if it was for more Aunt Betty stuff. I'm not 100%, but I saw him and I collectively just lost my shit. Like it is that moment where your butthole clenches up real tight. You can't breathe and you're like,
oh yeah,
and it's like, it's not. And I don't remember a damn thing he was talking to anybody about, but all I know is it was not. And it's like, I had met celebrities before and not really had that same experience, but when it was not, it was different. And it's because I think a lot of it was because it came with that Grace Shaker LSU vibe. Like when I heard it, it was like, well, this is different, but I like Jane's Addiction. And it was like, oh, dude, this isn't Jane's Addiction. And it's like, well, what the heck is this then?
Yeah.
And Mike moved effortlessly through music. And I think that's the big thing is like the man never had to stay stationary. He was fluid all the time. And it was one of the few people I've ever met in my life that was always an artist. So at the time that we started talking about producers for the second record, because it was literally a year after we released the first one, we started talking about the second record. And at that time, in conjunction in '96, when our album came out, we were getting a lot of press in Orange County simply because this was a new genre of music that was, but I mean, if you look at XL, DVD, if you look at the first Rage Against the Machine record that had come out like a year and a half before ours had, Urban Dance Squad, Limbo Maniacs, again, Red Hot Chili Pepper with Mother's Milk, this whole rap and rock thing was already existing. Urban Dance Squad, I think, was a big one. And it was kind of out there, but it was like, okay, well, is it defined by your location? Is it defined by your musical styling? What does it sound like? If EDL is from Long Beach and the Red Hot Chili Peppers are from Los Angeles, why don't they sound the same? And so we were trying to figure out what the sound was on the first one, but on the second one, it was, it came up very quickly. It's like, what do you think about not producing the record?
Wow.
Yeah. And so circling back, we were getting this publicity at the same time that the guys from Aunt Betty's were getting this publicity as well. So in one particular case, we had played Cornerstone and the Orange County Times had sent out a photographer and someone to cover our performance on the new artist showcase stage as this alternative Christian band from Orange County making it big. And the whole article and the pictures and everything came out on the Saturday cover of the entertainment section of the paper, which for that time would have been a big, big deal.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then the very next day on the Sunday one, which is the, gosh dog it. It's the World Series of entertainment. It was Aunt Betty's. And it's like, okay, if they're putting us on Saturday and they're putting Knott on Sunday, we have to be doing something right. Like you collectively look around and go, we're okay, right? And we had just gotten some very modest airplay on K-Rock. And all of a sudden Aunt Betty's was getting on K-Rock. And it's like, okay, again, if we follow Knott's path and we're fluid in our art, we're doing the right things, right? And it's like, obviously I'm not Knott. But you're also very aware that when you're with Mike, it's like, man, I am never going to be Mike. And that's okay, I think.
Yeah.
But I spent my whole life chasing, trying to be the guy. So when we talked about Michael, I have to admit there's this level of selfishness that I operated in saying yes with. And it's very much because, we were talking about like what resonated with you musically. One of the big things was this Laurel Canyon community of artists in the 60s and the 70s, like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Carly Simon, Brian Wilson. They had this community of people that were like just so amazing. Like I still listen to the Flying Burrito Brothers in constant rotation, and it's like just this little community of people made this amazing movement in music that just stuck with me. Yeah. And so I look at that and I look at that now and I'm like, well, I know why I wanted to go to the green room, and I know why I wanted to work with Knott. It's because I wanted to be with Knott, and I wanted to be in proximity to Terry Taylor and Gene Eugene and Scott Saletta and Eric Tokel and Wayne Everett and Jason Martin, and all of those guys were in that studio at the same time. It was like the energy level was high at like the end of 96, 97. And there was not like in the middle of all of this, it was heavy, and it's exactly where I wanted to be. And with Knott as a producer, you get time with him as in pre-production. And so Knott would drive to our studio in Torrance and would sit down on the couch and play it for me, babies. And it was always Teddy Baby. Teddy Baby, don't do that. Do this. Play it like this. And there's these certain kind of amazing, eccentric things that he would say in the most casual, artistic way that were just like, okay, I get it. Like, I know what my process for writing a song is, but when like Mike is throwing around a word like sugarcane, like, she's like sugarcane. Feels like a sugarcane kind of night. And it's like, why the hell does he keep saying these words? And then later on, you realize that they're like song titles. They're part of his vernacular because he's working them into lyrics. And it's like, that's the process. Wow. How do I learn that process? And so with Knott coming on as a producer, it was almost like, now you have permission to do whatever you want, and we'll give you the green room to do it. Wow. And it's like, how do you say no to that? Like, how do you wag a finger at that and go, no? I did it I wanted to do it for some selfish reasons, but thankfully, Carl and Eric had been in the green room too and knew the vibe there and knew what it was about. And man, those dudes just leaned in heavy. Yeah. And our bass player at the time, Michael Albright, man, that dude leaned in. Like, everybody just did not squander the moment. Awesome. I don't think any of us did, dude. One part ego, one part performance, one part gratitude, I guess, Totally. With a dash of screw it, let's rock. So.
When you first met Mike Knott, you kind of mentioned you kind of were starstruck, and I mean, how did he feel about EDL? I mean, it's cool that you kind of touched on all these different talents coming in and kind of just melding into this pot, like you said, and you guys were part of that pot. I'm just curious what Mike thought of EDL, and obviously just kind of like, saying, they're usually all these bands are kind of like rock bands or whatever. You guys are a heavier band, so I'm just curious what that was like for him, and just maybe your viewpoint on that.
I think, I think the biggest thing was Gene and Michael were not stuck. You know, I think when you have a legacy like theirs, you kind of earn the right to fall into a position of, this is what I play and you're all here for what I play.
Exactly.
And they never felt stuck. And so when we went into the process of recording, it was, what kind of new ideas do you have? Like in the liner notes for American Standard, Gene, whether it was in jest or it was because it was deserved, Gene is listed as my understudy, because Gene would come in and goes, what I need you to do is run. He would scream out loud. He goes, do the Ted scream here and put it here. And can you do it for here so that I can record that and bring it back later? And so Gene almost becomes like a member of the band through his orchestration and curating these sounds and these little things. And Mike is there because the direction is rock. And I think we're very lucky that Mike was coming out of Strip Cycle and was coming out of Aunt Betty's and was very much like 4 on the 4, let's get this. And so it was pretty much like the LaFleur heads down, let's rock we came in with. He matched that energy really, really well. For Gene, having worked with like Dynamic Twins and the Tunnel Rats and all those guys, on a hip hop level, he was in his pocket. Like
Sure.
he knew. When it come to the screaming part, he had worked with I believe he had worked with some of the hardcore bands too, like the first Unashamed record maybe. But we also, I think Mark Rodriguez from Blood was in there.
Yeah.
I know Bob Moon was in there. So, the green room is kind of this thing where it's like all chefs are welcome.
Yeah.
And more so, especially with like Bob and Mark, who had known us when we were still cutting teeth, they kind of came in and maybe took it personal. And it didn't hurt that I don't know if we were sharing studio time or not, but Jason Martin was working on, Jason and Wayne and I think Cloud were all working on Americana the same time we were working on American Standard.
Wow.
And so, I mean, turn up the energy, Soletta and Tokel were working on Rich Young Ruler and Quail. And so A Few Loose Screws was working on 405. All of that happened in that 96, early 97 era. And it just felt like the green room was super dialed in. Like the energy, the people, like not, everybody was looking at everybody like, I don't know what to do with my hands, like, where is this energy coming from? And I think my personal opinion is, it was just kind of one of those unstoppable moments where it's like, we all excelled. I mean, you listen to Americana now and it's like, if that isn't in your top 10, you're not a human being.
Yeah, it's a great record.
Right. And if you don't listen to like, look, and I freely admit it. There are some guitar tones on that record that I absolutely will admit sound like Gray Shaker on purpose. If you ask me, but look at the people who put the record together. And I think everybody showed up, and it's a privilege to say that I have a duet. I don't, you're supposed to say feature, but I have a duet with Knott.
Yeah.
Knott is all over that record. If you really like dig into American Standard and listen in the background and listen to some of those little like subtle nuances where we're trying to show people that we can actually be silly. We're trying to show people that we can sing. Knott's in the back. Everything Knott's in the back. At the end of Love Lies, if you listen to the very end of the song, you can hear Eric and Gene, Mark, myself, and Michael screaming in the background, and you can hear it through Carl's pickups on his guitar because he did a solo. Carl hates soloing. Like Carl is the 4/4 explosion in your face. Like, I will beat you up in the parking lot with this guitar sound. And he played the solo and carried it all the way through the song. And we're just over the moon about it. We're screaming and you can hear this slight screaming in the background. It's through the pickups coming through the room as the amp is mic'd. And it's like, that was the energy. Like if there's that 1/100th of a second where you hear, oh my God, it's in that moment where it's like, we're kind of unstoppable right now. And
Awesome.
I don't know if everybody else caught that vibe, but man, I sure caught that vibe from everybody else. We were in really good company. Like, Jeremy, we were in really good company, and I look fondly at that moment. Like,
I bet.
okay, I will tell you this. I went in to do guest vocals on A Few Loose Screws record, and Wayne was there. And Wayne and I were talking, and he was talking about Americana. And he's like, obviously Wayne's energy is up. Like, match that, I dare you. And I love him for that. And Wayne was telling me about Americana. It's like Black Sabbath, and it's like really upfront. And he was telling me all this song, telling me about the record like it was right there in front of me. Like, you cut it up with a knife and a fork and eat it. And when I heard Americana, I was like, oh, that's what an amazing record sounds like. I literally, I can show you, I have goosebumps talking about it right now. It's
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was that energy, but Knott gave permission. And I think personally my takeaway is that Knott was like, let's rock. Coming from working with Lanny Cardola, where it was like, let's be artistic and let's move, was a very methodical process. And Knott was like, plug it in and whatever it sounds like, that's a record.
Let's rip. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, dude, I'm so on board for this right now. Like, how do we do this?
Dude, that rules. I wanted to ask you about the Browbeats song that you wound up doing, and just being a part of that. I know Knott was involved, with a lot of those records, and maybe just briefly touch on that and just kind of, and I saw it's coming out on vinyl soon, which is really cool and really fitting.
Yeah, I'm glad you showed me that, because I would have never known it was out there. And it's like, I'm going to have to wait in line to buy my own album, I guess. I don't know. I just found that, I think we were talking earlier, I just found that out about XL and DVD's Death Before Dishonor. Like, not only does he thank me at the end of that record, but it's like, I got gang vocals all over that thing. And it's like, maybe the blamed Frail. I might have to buy a lot of records just because I've never heard myself on vinyl. That's cool. So when I was at Alarma, they grab some records, do what you can. And obviously you load up on like Tourniquet, Mortification, and you grab all the Intense Records live records, because that's all your buddies, right? Like that whole Mortal record is all my friends, but I remember getting the first two Browbeats records, because that was everybody. That was Ojo that was Terry Taylor, and it was Adam Again, and it's everything I wanted to listen to. And it was like, and you just didn't have to change the CD. You just kept playing it, and you got so much out of that. But I also got Straight Six. And it was the first time I ever saw an artist in the Christian industry have somebody who was not Christian, or at least was an artist outside of the industry, when I saw that Jeremy Enoch was on there. And I love Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yeah, same here.
Like, actively in a relationship at that time with Sunny Day Real Estate. And I just thought to myself, like, you can do that? Like, you're allowed to do that. And then you look at the change in the industry, and it's, all of these artists like Stavesacre and everybody else later is like, oh, we're talking about working with this guy, and we're talking about working with this producer, and you can do that? Like, I was blown away. So like, when Knott is like, I wrote all these songs and it's going on a record that's in the general market, but it's me and Deutsch and Chuck and Dennis. I was like, you can do that? Like, it was beyond me. Like somebody was like, you could put peanut butter and jelly on a sandwich together. It's like, shut up. It was like mind blowing. So these Browbeats records I carried with me, and it was like, man, it's like so art. It just such like an exploration in art. How do you make community? And at the same time, it was like paralleling to this idea that there was this album out from the brand new Heavies called Heavy Rhyme Experience, which was, here's this amazing band. Here are all of these amazing artists like The Far Side and Master Ace. And it's like, you can do that. Like all these people can play together. And so right at the point that KMG acquired Alarma and the entire Frontline back catalog, they kept our contract. And I think they kept the insiders and was really just buying the back catalog. And we're trying to, during this position of bankruptcy to ownership with KMG, trying to get out the projects that had the most work done, and one of them was Browbeats. And obviously, if anything, at least it was going to recoup some money moving into that acquisition. And Michael had mentioned to me early in the recording process for American Standard, what do you think about this song? And he brought it up. On the tape player, and Gene kind of mixed it a little bit. He's like, what do you think about Teddy Baby rapping over this? And I'm singing over that. And Teddy Baby comes back with the smooth sauce. And then you're back here, and then I'm here. And like, it's all just good. And I'm like, I can absolutely do that. Nothing came from it. I was like, okay. So it was like just not too long after American Standard was done and was starting to get out. Mike calls me up out of nowhere. He's like, Teddy Baby, time to do the Stoner Girl. I hadn't written anything. And so I wrote it, went into the studio, and Michael's like, just sounds like this, Stone. And I'm like, that's good for you. He goes, no, baby, we're singing it together. We're doing it all together. We're going to be a happy family. You're going to like it. I'm like, okay. And he hands me a microphone, and I'm sitting in the actual studio, not in the vocal booth. I'm just standing behind Gene, standing behind Michael with this SM58 microphone, just same thing I use at a club. And I'm just standing there with this microphone. He's like, okay, Dax is going to come in. He's like, I'm cool with the sexy and everything like that. And then you're going to start rapping. Okay, cool. We do the song in like, I hope nobody says that it sounds like it, but we did the song in like 4 takes. And then he's like, okay, now we got to sing it. I'm like, good for you. He's like, no, we got to sing it. So we sing it, and we get through with it and everything. And then that was kind of the last I heard about it until like, I realized like there was a couple of people that were like, is that a band? It's like, could Stoner Girl be a band? And at the time, it was like, and I hate saying this, but it was like bands like Lent, or Lit, Sugar Ray. Yeah. All of these bands had just a drop of hip hop, but were so commercially active in general market radio. And then Sublime, with everything that had happened to Brad, which was awful. But with all these bands, they had just enough hip hop where it's like you could be a 40-year-old mom or a 13-year-old kid, and everybody wins. And people were like, "Is this a song? Is this a band? Is there something here?" And I think in my head it was like, "Well, of course this is a band. Me and Knott are gonna start a new band, and we're gonna make $1 million, and everybody in Orange County is gonna love us." But when Stoner Girl came out, KMG had put their name on it and actually put it out in the market. And it got college play. Wow. Like, I'm very surprised, just as a fan of the record, it got play. Later on, a friend of mine came up to me as, I never thought I'd say this, but you're the only artist outside of Terry Taylor on that record who actually gets a full writer's acknowledgement. Wow. Because every other song on there, Michael had already written, but the one that Terry sang and the one that I sang were all original lyrics. And so when you look at the back of the record, it's like Terry and I have a writer's credit, and it's like sorry.
Oh, dude. I understand.
Like, it means a lot to me because it's like Mike gave me permission. Like I said, Mike gave me permission to rock. And I mean, my name is next to Terry's. Come on. I mean, come on. Like, how charmed is life? And there was some talk that, you know, we would keep that energy with resonance on it because Mike sang on it, and we would do a video for that. And then we wound up doing the video for Salt Circles, which Jared Doan produced. And it's the pebble at the top of the hill that started the avalanche. And if it wasn't for Knott and Gene and everyone who was in that studio that were kind of just rooting us on, and Carl not only being a guitarist but being a vocalist, and Eric coming through and putting background vocals on some of the coolest parts of the record and everything, like, it takes I'm just going to be very honest, it takes a fucking village, man.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky to have had some insanely talented people in this village. And I stand as the lone pauper watching this experience, but I'm still very proud of Browbeats. I'm just super proud I got to be part of that. I count myself very lucky.
That's so cool. That's very poignant. Like the way I could tell the way you talk about it. It obviously meant the world to you. So I think that's really cool, and I appreciate your transparency and you know, just being vulnerable in that moment. I just appreciate that, man. Let me ask you real quick before we close up shop. What's your favorite Mike Knott record and song?
Kill Will, Gray Shaker.
Yeah, it's great.
Like, I'm not even gonna hesitate a little bit. I mean, is it Popsicle Stick? It's on Ford. Is it Ford Supersonic?
Yeah. What is that?
Jeff Elbell gave me that record. I regret it got lost in a move. Popsicle Stick is absolutely fantastic too. That song made me cry the first time. I'm like, had very Cats in the Cradle moment with that. I think, like, the Aunt Betty's record just stands out as this amazing piece of work.
I totally agree.
I think the whole thing about, like, if you knew Michael during that time, a lot of the names and a lot of the references and the locations and things like that, they all come really heavy into play. And it's like, man, it kind of is I don't know, it's kind of a very telling of the landmarks in the music that you're hearing. And so it's kind of unfair to say a whole record. It's just the Aunt Betty's record was like, look what you can do.
Yeah.
You know, again, you have permission. But I listen to Kill Will, and I'm just in awe of how much that didn't sound like anything else I had ever heard.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just I'm trying to do the song justice. It doesn't need me to do it justice. That song's okay. The song is fine on its own. It doesn't need me. Just that whole Gray Shaker record was nothing I had ever
flawless.
heard of.
Flawless.
It just, there's an unsettling amount of honesty when it comes to Michael's life, when it comes to who he is as an individual, both standing in front of you and legacy walking in the room before he does. It's just, it's fantastic. I urge people to listen to it again and argue with me that it's not an amazing body of work.
Totally.
It so is, and it's just easy to say that. But I don't know. I'm coming back to Popsicle Stick now, and I'm singing it in my head and wondering if maybe I didn't pick the wrong song. But I don't know. Did you really pick a wrong song? And it just makes me miss him.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
The painting behind me, on the back of it has this amazing note from Michael with his phone number, so I can't show you. But it's just got this amazing, kind and caring note on the back of the painting, which makes me insanely happy. If I could just share real quick, because I know we're kind of strapped for time. I text Michael back and forth for like the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. It's common conversation. Miss you. Hope you're well. Hope everything's good. How's the family? He always referred to my son as AMC. How's old AMC? Because Aaron's middle name is Michael. For that reason, Aaron was an idea coming to fruition. I don't know another way to say that. And when the opportunity was there, I named him Aaron Michael Cookerly because Michael was that big of an influence on my life. And yeah, so I talked to Michael in November, I think just after Thanksgiving. And we were talking on the phone, and I was really trying to get him to want to meet up with me for coffee when I got back home. And it was just casual conversation, and then he passed the phone over to his mom. And I think I talked with her for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And you could just tell there was a lot going on at the house, and it was like, okay. And she's like, well, okay. And that was the end of the call. I was like, yeah, that tracks, dude. That tracks. This all sounds about right. I think I texted him on New Year's Eve, just wishing him a happy New Year. And then obviously he's an incredibly busy human being. He's got a new record out that's on Bandcamp under Michael Knott, I think. I'm sorry, I'm really bad with this stuff.
Oh, you're good.
And I know it was just, I'm glad I got a chance to talk to him. Just because he's just the best. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I have met very few people after him that I can say, man, that guy's cool, but a lot of them wish they were as cool as Michael Knott. And I think that's the testament is the dude was art. Like, and everybody around him had permission to be art too. And
I love that.
I'm very thankful that I was given that permission and that opportunity for that time.
Awesome. That is incredible. I love that. It's really cool to hear your perspective on it. And like I said, I can tell how moved you are by it. And it's just really cool that not only he meant so much to you, but to everyone maybe that's listening to this podcast. He was just one of those artists that, forever will be remembered. And obviously one that we can always go back and listen to those songs, and it brings us back to a moment, which I think is the power of music and especially the music that means the most to us. So, man, Ted, this has been so cool. I'm so honored that you would come on here. And I know in the future we'll hopefully get to do an EDL episode a little more in depth.
100th episode.
Let's do. Hey, it's close. I'm at 80 something. So
the official. Why the hell did you wrote that? Why the hell did you write that? The official. If you only knew how many people hate your music, Ted. We can do a deep dive, dude. We can do that. I promise you. We'll figure it out.
Well, I'm super honored you'd come on here and talk with me about Mike Knott and what he meant to you. I really deeply appreciate it. And,
like I said, there's a lot of great people out there who I'm positive have better stories. Chuck Cummings, being one of the most amazing human beings in the entire world, could probably tell you a line or two.
Well, hook it up. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, brother. Well, I will talk to you soon, and we'll get something scheduled soon for the EDL episode. I really appreciate not only you coming on, but your friendship. I really, really mean that. And I just thank you so much, Ted.
Likewise, man. The conversations we've had over the last year or so have been absolutely fantastic, and I look forward to them. So thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, Ted, I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Take care.
Thank you to the listener for tuning in again and again. Thanks for the messages, the likes, the subscribes, the reviews, all that jazz. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Ted Cookerly. Awesome conversation about Mike Knott, so cool to get your perspective on not only working with him, just the influence he had on your life. So thank you, Ted, for your time. Looking forward to an episode where we dive deep into EDL. So thank you, Ted. We've got some incredible artists on the horizon, guys, and you know it, nostalgia is still a heck of a drug.
Hey, Mr. Decision, make up my mind for me. You're like a religion. I could be caged or free, or I might be lost at sea. Hey, Mr. Judgmental, show me the way to be. Show me the way to go. You're high on a pedestal. You know what I should know. And I wish I could become deaf and dumb. And I wish I could become deaf and dumb. Hey, Mr. Perfect Choice, point me the way to look. Singing your flawless voice. Where's the road I should have took? What page is best in this book? Hey, Mr. Heaven Bound, help me to find the way. Get me up off this ground. What more than Christ can be found? And I wish I could become deaf and dumb. And I wish I could become deaf and